Let's do that.
So, what we're doing today is we're actually going to be solving quadratic equations. So before, all we did was graph them, or we factored them, or we found the vertex and stuff. We haven't actually ever solved for them. So, we're going to solve for quadratics today, and they're not super tough. So I'm going to find the solutions to the quadratic equation x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. So my solutions are where this whole thing actually equals 0. And so I can find that by doing a couple things. First thing I need to do is factor. How are we going to factor this one?
2 times 2.
So, in middle factor, right? Because there's nothing in here except a 1. So we are going to in middle factor this and say what times what equals the number on the end, which is 6. And adds up to the number in the middle, which is negative 5. What times what is positive 6 adds up to negative 5?
Negative 2, negative 3.
Negative 3 and negative 2, right?
What?
Yeah.
No.
Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5. All right. And then we split it into two parentheses, right? X minus 2, x minus 3. That was what we did last couple weeks before the break. We're going to do that today, but I think we're just going to do this. We will not AC factor today. So we'll just do the in-middle factoring. We'll do AC factoring tomorrow. All right. So we factored this, and we got x minus 2, x minus 3, and it's still going to equal 0. We still have this equals 0 here. I forgot to put it before. So we have an equals 0. I want to know, what can I plug in for x to make the whole thing equal 0? So I'm actually going to get two answers because there is a times in between these, right?
Yes.
Two parentheses. There's really a time there. So if I can make this first parenthesis 0, I don't care what my second parenthesis is. 0 times anything is 0. Same thing. If I can make my second parenthesis 0, I don't care what the first one is. 0 times anything is 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each parenthesis separately. I'm going to take this x minus 3, and then I'm going to take my x minus 3, and I'm going to say, what can I plug in to make each of these 0 separately? What can I plug in for this x right here to make x minus 2 equal 0? 2, right? 2 minus 2 is 0. How about my second one? What can I plug into x for x minus 3 equals 0? 3, right? These are my two solutions because, 2 and 3, right? Because if I plug in 2 for my first parenthesis right here, which I think I did down here, yeah. If I plug in 2 for my first parenthesis, 2 minus 2 in my first one, 2 minus 3, 2 minus 2 is 0, 2 minus 3 is negative 1, 0 times negative 1 is 0. If I plug in 3, it's the same thing, except it's flipped around. I get 0 for my second parenthesis, negative 1 for my first parenthesis. So I actually have two answers for my solutions. I have 2 and I have 3. Those are my two answers. I need them both. And when we talk about solutions, we're actually going to do this more tomorrow. But just to give you guys a heads up for today, what this means is, if I'm going to graph my parabola, I have 1, 2, 3. It's going to look terrible, but that's okay. If I'm going to graph my parabola, it means I'm going to cross my x-axis at the number 2, and the number 3. So it's going to be like really, really tiny right in here. Number 2, number 3. That's what this means. We're going to look at this more tomorrow. I just kind of want to give you a heads up for now. So it's going to cross your x-axis at 2 and 3. For today, though, we're going to practice finding these without graphing. So let's look at our next one. Let's actually skip this one because we're going to skip AC factoring. I'm going to look at this bottom one down here. So I need to, before I do anything else, I need to factor this. I want to know what times what is 3, and same numbers have to add up to 4.
3 and 1.
3 and 1, right? 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. So I am going to split this apart. X plus 3, x plus 1 equals 0. And I'm going to show all the steps, even though you can probably just look at it and get your answer. Just because I want to show all the steps to make sure, in case someone's confused. So I have x plus 3. I want to make this whole parenthesis equal 0, and I want to do the same thing with the second parenthesis. So I'm going to take my x plus 3 and say, how can I make x plus 3 equal 0? What can I plug in for x? Negative 3. I plug in negative 3, I get 0. Same thing with my second parenthesis. I have x plus 1. What can I plug into that to make the whole thing 0? Well, negative 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. My two answers are negative 3 and negative 1. And when I do these, I should really put in x equals. I should really go x equals negative 3, negative 1 to list it like this for your final answer. So I won't mark it wrong if you just kind of circle your numbers, but technically you should put x equals negative 3, negative 1 for your two solutions. And that's it. So we're going to do a couple more of these, and then you guys will have time to work on them in class. Like I said, we're going to skip the AC factoring to make it a little easier. So you guys want to do one on your own, or do you want to practice another one? You want to do another one together? Okay. We're done. Alright, and so we're going to do this one. One thing I forgot to do on this one, though, is I forgot to say equals 0. For everything we do today, it should be equals something. So, I want to know, well, I forgot to put equals 0 on this problem. So, I'm going to solve this. So my first thing I need to do is factor it. What times what equals negative 24? And adds up to positive 2. I don't know. LMA, give me something we can multiply to get 24. Excuse me, negative 24.
Negative?
Yeah, negative 24. Give me two things we multiply to get negative 24.
Right? No.
They don't have to be the right one. Just give me two of them.
Negative.
No, negative.
Just give me
No,
two
that's
of them.
No, that's
That's right. We'll just keep going until we find it.
Negative 12.
Negative 12 and 2. Okay?
Oh, see?
If I go negative 12 and 2, I get negative 24. Negative 12 plus 2, though, is negative 10, so can't use those ones.
Okay.
What if I flip my negatives? What if I did 12 and negative 2?
You get 10.
I get 10, that's still not right. Alright, so let's keep going. That's fine. We're going to keep going, alright. Alyssa, give me something else we can multiply to get negative 24. Alright, what can I multiply to get just regular 24?
6 and 4.
6 and 4, right? Let's make one of them negative. Let's go 6 times, how about negative 4?
Oh.
6 times negative 4 is negative 24. Is 6
See, I
plus
thought of
negative
that
4
one, but I
positive
didn't
2?
think it would work.
Yeah.
Hey, we found out. So, I'm going to factor and go x plus 6. And then I'm going to go x minus 4. It's going to equal 0. And now I need to get my two answers. I need to kind of split my parentheses up for my two different
It's
answers.
negative 640.
So I'm going to take my first parenthesis and go x plus 6 equals 0. What can I put in for this x to make it equal 0?
22.
7.
Oh, shoot.
No.
Wait, what?
You put in 7. 7 plus 6 equals 0?
No. It's a joke.
Negative
It's been
6.
2 weeks and you already forgot.
We get negative 6 for my first one. For my second
We'll do
parenthesis,
this.
I'm going to go x minus 4 equals 0. And then I have to figure out what can I plug in for x.
Yes.
That'd be 4.
It equals yes.
So those are my two answers. I have x equals
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
negative 6 and positive 4. I need them
Oh,
both.
we haven't learned these yet. We're about to. Okay, let's teach the next part.
Alright, let's have you guys try one now.
No,
Yes.
we
Yes.
don't know how
Alright.
to AC factor.
What is
We're
AC
not AC
factor?
factoring. We're gonna skip those for now. Alright, so I'm gonna make up one real quick for you guys to
Oh
do.
my
Oh,
god.
yeah, babe.
We're gonna make up, this is a random one, it's not in your paper.
Well, duh.
Make it equal negative 3
So let's
7.
go x squared plus 21x minus
7. 3. 3.
Did I not just say not?
11.
Okay, I just said to make it -3/7. That's what you're doing, dude.
What you want to flip?
72. Minus 72.
Whoa.
Equals 0.
You need a chair.
Yeah. So, you need to factor it, and then you need to find your two solutions.
Oh my god.
What's good, Glenn?
Shows up from the second house.
When did you get back?
Today? No, yesterday.
Oh. From practice? Oh, you can't. No.
No, you missed all day.
Hey, let's go to Tyler's game. 5:30.
I'll be there.
Alright, work on your in-class problem. Let James
You
distract
can,
you.
you just can't.
You got lots to do.
Wait, what are we doing? That black
That
one?
black one, yeah. Black problem right there.
Oh,
So factor it, then find your solution.
You see there's a black problem?
Cookie.
What? What are you laughing at?
Dude, it's not 12 6.
Obviously.
What?
No,
It's not 12 6. It's 6 is
a basketball game or practice?
He's done the rest of the year. He
He's
quit.
done for the season.
Dude, what the heck?
It's because I took his jersey.
See, my parents won't let me.
Who
do
took
it.
his jersey?
I did, and then he got butthurt, so he didn't want to play no more.
Dude, I can't believe you really ain't playing this year.
I told you. He wouldn't
Dude,
play.
that's. What?
I was saying, oh, Thomas won't play the rest of the year. Watch.
He was saying that.
Yeah.
I vouch for that.
Great checks.
-72.
Remember, if you can't, or if you're not sure,
What parents?
what times what is negative 72, take 72 and start dividing it by something. Like divide it by 2, then divide it by 3.
8 and
Why would you
13.
do that?
Figure out how to split it up.
Eight doesn't
I'm 18 and 3.
72.
21.
18.
Oh, let me find it. I
You
gotta
multiply
check
to
the
get the
guess.
number on the
Sounds
end
right.
though. Remember, what times what
What's
equals
18?
negative 72. And same thing has to add up to positive 21.
No.
So on your own
19
paper,
and 2.
figure out how to factor it.
Internet's
It's out
down.
of. It's out of.
Well, I'm not on my computer.
Hey, I'm doing a go like game nowadays.
Yeah.
Like
I think
7.
Christmas awesome.
Good. 12.
Where'd you get Austin?
12.
Me too. I got his card.
You better get
No.
your
And
I
bonds.
need it now.
What?
Bonds.
Oh, I thought you said.
He was 18 before they started that.
You wild. You
That's
wild.
what Brandon
My
said.
grandfather's lawn.
That's what Brandon
Yeah.
That's what Grandpa said.
That's no, I didn't know I was about to say that.
No,
That's what Brandon
no.
said.
Go get my grandfather's lawn there.
72,
Tobacco
right?
rolls.
Brandon said there was.
I don't believe it.
I don't know.
I don't believe it.
Negative
I went to a circle
seventy-
fight
I, oh, you don't have
when like before New Year's Eve.
Shit. I went to.
And I was like asking him, I was like, when's this? She's like, no grandfather's little play here either. Oh god.
What's grandfather?
Stop it there.
I don't know.
Where you'd be grandfathered in if you applied under the old rule but not under the new rule.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like if you're already 18, you can still buy it before the law.
You always
Yeah.
give me a face.
Shut up, Jane, you little.
Divided by 6.
Jaden, are you 18?
Found it. Oh wait.
Yeah, Jaden's 18.
6
How long
is
you been?
20.
Oh,
It's 12.
You weren't 18 before though, were you?
He's not very smart.
6 is 21.
Yeah.
7.
I'll give you about another minute, then we'll go over it.
3.
And then we'll probably do an exit check or something maybe.
2.
I gotta do it, yes.
Oh, it's 4, huh?
I can only imagine.
How, when did they make
I
So
got
it's
it, I
good
got
for
it,
you.
but it's set up.
You know, I could have saved her life.
You got a picture?
But-
Yeah.
Dude.
Goki, this makes no sense. Have you tried to solve this?
I already solved it.
No, it's fake. Did you solve
So I was
it?
like, I'm not gonna fight.
Take
because
72,
it's
start
like-
dividing it by
say
different
something.
things, like 2 and
You
3.
divided every number.
Divide by 50.
No,
72 divided by 50.
Why not?
It's not good.
42.
Divided by 22.
You know that?
22. It's negative 3 points.
Yeah.
I tried 35.
Alright, let me help you out a little bit.
Give us the first one.
Alright, what times what is negative 72?
12 and
22.
6.
8.
12 and 6. Alright, is 12 plus 6 21?
No.
11.
Anyway? No.
Oh, I'm
Alright,
good.
let's keep going. Chris, did you get him? Were you raising your hand?
8, but isn't 8 9?
Was it Cal? Were you raising your hand? What'd you get?
Equals 21.
Negative 3 and
You're
24.
learning.
Negative 3.
Oh,
I told you.
No, no, no.
24.
3 and 24.
Alright, So your two numbers, negative
Oh,
3 and
yeah,
24.
yeah.
Now that we've done
I was
this,
doing these
now
backwards.
finish it off. Finish solving it. And then
Wait.
somebody's gonna help me.
Can I do equals x?
Hey, go get some green.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's it.
X minus 3, right? X minus 24. What? X plus 24. Huh?
You're gonna use this.
What are you doing?
Two parentheses.
Why don't you just write out the answer?
We got JV and
Where's Pendleton?
who's on their JV
I've
team?
got
Making fun
I've
of
been doing mine now.
Making fun of like where
Wait, how good are they?
Wisconsin, they beat him.
What?
We beat them in Hill.
We played Pendleton already?
Minus 3.
Yeah.
So X minus 3. And
They're not
minus
good.
equals 0.
Damn, if they beat it. Do you guys even have a game?
Alright.
Thursday, Friday.
So, we have to figure out what two things we can plug in for x to make them equal 0. So we have a x minus 3 equals, or excuse me, x minus 3, x plus 24, there we go. Saved it. Equals 0. Alright, Maya, what can I plug in for one of these? 3. So for my first answer, I get x equals 3. Carissa, what's my next answer?
11.
The second answer, it's not 11.
Oh, crap.
Negative 24. Alright, so we get x equals 3, x equals negative 24. Alright, so what I want to do now is we are going to skip ahead and we are going to, let me see.
You haven't taught us this yet.
Yeah, I know, I'm just trying to think what I want to do.
Teach us this?
We're going to skip to, no.
There's none left.
Nothing.
Yeah, we're going to skip to the exit ticket, but I'm going to make up another one.
Yeah!
Dude.
Alright, so for your exit ticket, we're going to go
Can I get a drink of water?
x squared after you're done with the exit ticket.
Yeah.
Done with the exit
Let's
ticket.
go
I already
plus
done my exit ticket.
15x
Wait.
plus
We're figuring out Goki's mind.
50 equals 0.
50. 50.
Alright, so I will turn on Scrata for this in just a second.
I've been saying.
And then I'm going to have to change your homework around also, so don't start on that yet.
Finish the exit ticket. Put on soccer, please.
So needy.